Hi, I'm Robbie Taylor. I manage the money and cash policy team at the Reserve Bank. My role is to manage the Reserve Bank's research and advice on the future of money, which includes our work on digital cash.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Willifier, and I'm very excited to be here tonight. I'm an advisor in money and cash policy team in Robbie's team. I do research and policy papers and advisory notes for consideration on the future of cash work.
Before we get into the presentation, I would like to open with a karakia. Mai e, mai e te tipua, mai e te tahito, mai e te kahui o ngā ariki, mai e ta whiwhi atu ki a tū, mai e ta whiwhi atu ki a rongo, mai e ta whiwhi atu ki a tāne, haumie, uie, taikie. This karakia speaks about being bold, having courage, and coming together for a good conversation, is what we hope for this evening's webinar.
Thank you, Robbie. Tonight we are going to give you a presentation on the work that we are doing on digital cash for New Zealand, and we are going to be starting off with a short video explaining what digital cash is. Then Robbie will explain why we are doing this investigation, and we will explain what we think the benefits would be by way of two short everyday examples, whereafter you will have time to ask us questions. So let's get started. Here's a short video, approximately 2 minutes long.
The way New Zealanders pay for things is changing. Digital payments are becoming more popular, and we're not using cash as much as we used to. We also have a lot more choice in how we pay. Sometimes we send money from one bank account to another, or tap and pay with our card or phone. To keep up with the changing times, we're looking at the possibility of issuing digital cash. This would be a digital version of cash issued by us, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand Te Pūtea Matua. But it wouldn't replace cash. Cash will still be available. This makes it different from cryptocurrencies that are issued by private firms and not as stable. We want everyone to have access to digital cash, even if you don't have a bank account. Like banknotes, you could use digital cash to make payments when the power or internet is down, like in an emergency. If you want, you'll be able to use a physical card to access your digital cash, and on devices like your phone, your watch, or through cards in a digital wallet. These would be provided by a private company or your bank. You'll be able to use your digital cash to buy things online, in shops, pay bills, or send money to your friends and family in an instant. Similar to banknotes and coins, digital cash would work with current payment options, and you can switch between the two. Your transactions will be private, meaning we won't be able to see how you spend your money or control where you spend your money. Just like the money you use today, you can trust that digital cash will be safe and secure. We'll protect your digital cash from any cyber attacks, theft, or fraud. We haven't made a decision if we'll introduce digital cash. We're still exploring the possibilities of how it might work, and we want your feedback on the features that are important to you. Please visit our website to learn more and have your say.
So why are we investigating digital cash? First of all, we're still going to have physical cash if we have digital cash. That's an important point for us to reinforce. People will still be able to go to get money out of ATMs and use banknotes and coins. This is a critical function of the Reserve Bank to meet the needs of the public for banknotes and coins, and something we take very seriously. But digital cash would be a new form of money. It would exist alongside banknotes and coins as another product that the Reserve Bank issues, and alongside the electronic money in your bank account, which is a private form of money. But we know that people are using cash less and less and finding it harder to access cash. So we're planning for a future that has less cash, but is definitely not one that is cashless. Digital cash is about giving New Zealanders choice in the way they pay for things and how they use their money. It's about ensuring the New Zealand dollar remains the money we use in New Zealand, and that the money and financial system remain stable. Today, New Zealanders still can't make payments instantly to each other by electronic means unless they're with the same bank. Innovations in money and payments are taking place globally and are challenging New Zealand's money. Things like crypto assets, distributed ledgers, smart contracts, and digital currencies issued by global technology companies. These are either here today or part of the conversation. Our money must innovate to stay relevant and useful, and there's an opportunity to use digital cash to support competition and innovation and give New Zealanders the products and services they deserve. And just like banknotes and coins, it would be issued and backed by the Reserve Bank, making it safe and trusted and secure.
So let's look at how New Zealanders will be able to use digital cash and how it is different to what is available today. Let's look at the example of Levi. He, like me, likes to have coffee at his favorite coffee shop. Today he's arranged to meet with Grace, an old school friend. Levi arrives first and orders 2 cups of coffee, and he pays by holding his cell phone against the POS terminal. After the catch-up session, Grace pays Levi for her coffee, and she touches her phone to the back of his phone. They are using digital cash, and the money is available instantaneously in Levi's account, even though he banks with KiwiBank and Grace with BNZ. Levi really likes instant payments. Our next example, we are going to look at offline payments at Leilani. Leilani lives in a small town in rural New Zealand. In this town, they have severe weather events, and cell phone reception is sometimes patchy. The last time when they had a severe weather event, they lost internet access and had poor cell phone coverage. The FPOS system went down and retailers could not accept payments. So the neighborhood and the community couldn't buy food or any essential items. But if they had digital currency in an offline mode, no internet or power would be required. They would be able to make payments, buy food, and transfer money. To download digital cash on a phone or a card, you would download the digital cash on your phone or on your card and then transfer it with Bluetooth or something similar like near frequency, NFC, near field. Robbie, help me out.
Near field communication.
Near field communication, thank you, to the other device. Shops can then accept payments as the FPOS will be up and running. I'm now going to hand over to Robbie to explain what the next steps will be.
Thanks, Margaret. So yeah, where are we at? We're at stage 2 of our 4-stage process, which means we're considering the design of a central bank digital currency or digital cash in New Zealand. Decision on whether we should have digital cash in New Zealand is many years away and is ultimately a decision for the government. There'll be many more chances to have your say on this work before it concludes, but this is a really important opportunity for everybody to provide their perspective on the features that digital cash should have in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So the consultation opened, as you all know, it opened last Wednesday and is open till the 26th of July, so about 3 months. And we really want to hear your feedback. And we've provided a couple of ways that people can provide feedback. The first one is a survey. It has 12 questions, very easy to answer. You only have to answer the first 5 to actually complete the survey. If you want to tell us more, you could also make a submission via our online portal. It's just that easy. Just go to the link on the website, the link on the page in front of you. There's a lot of consultation material on that web page, consultation notes and background material. So if you want to get into more detail on particular topics, like how might a central bank digital currency or digital cash protect privacy or improve innovation or support inclusion, there's a lot of material on there. We're also in the process of producing alternative formats for our consultation paper so people with disabilities can engage with it. These will be available in late May. Now, we're ready to answer your questions, so please use the chat function to ask any questions you have. George, what have we got up first?
We've got some great questions coming through. So the first one I'm going to ask you guys is, what percentage of the public are you guys envisioning will uptake this new digital cash?
What percentage of the public? We don't have a fixed number in mind. We would like people to use it if they see it's necessary. For us, it's really important that digital cash is an option for people to use alongside other payment options, that they have choice, that it exists to support competition and innovation and better services for New Zealanders. But the exact number of people that need to use it to deliver that is not something we have a view on.
Great, thank you, Robbie. Will digital cash be programmable at any stage?
So we want to enable a system where innovation and programmability is possible. We envisage this happening through a system where the payments, like they are today, could be programmed by intermediaries or third-party service providers. So not by the Reserve Bank itself, but by your bank or the person that you deal with to deliver, more efficient, easy ways to use the money at the front end. And so maybe that's a form of programmability, but we're not talking about it in terms of sort of programmability in the money itself.
Do you imagine there'll be a charge to retailers to accept digital cash? Kind of like how you've got a charge when you use PayWave?
So one of our intentions with digital cash is to try and help reduce the cost of payments to New Zealanders. Exactly what the design is of a central bank digital currency or digital cash will determine the fees that are charged to consumers to actually use the product. We would hope that they're low or no fees, but we can't sort of commit to anything at this stage because that's all subject to the design of the digital cash and something we're seeking some feedback on via this consultation. But we certainly acknowledge the challenges people face with some of the high costs around payments today.
Great. We've got a few questions here about privacy. So how will you be handling people's privacy and information using digital cash?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one that we know is really important to people. It's really important that people understand one of our key design principles is to develop a digital cash product that is privacy-centric. And we believe that needs to do more and protect privacy more than is currently required under the Privacy Act. What we can be clear about is we will not collect any customer data, and we will put in place a regime around the digital cash product so that consumers control their data in a similar way that is proposed under the Consumer Data Right of the Consumer product bill that's currently before Parliament. Exactly how privacy is protected is subject to the future design of the central bank digital currency. It could be through some legislative means, and it could be through technology and some of the technology that exists to guarantee privacy while still ensuring it is compliant with things like AML and KYC regulation. But it's a really important design criteria for us and something we're really committed to delivering because we know that's important.
Great. So are you guys imagining that every single New Zealander will have a digital cash account alongside their bank account, or how will that work?
That's a very good question. Thank you for that one. It will be your choice. You can decide if you want digital cash. You can decide if you just want to continue with your normal bank accounts. You can decide if you just want to use cash. We are not going to prescribe how you should do it, but it is going to be to the choice of the customer. So I hope that answers your question.
Great. Now, why must all transactions be instant? Why is this so important?
So I suppose it's a good question. Instant payments has a place in certain sort of settings. We don't think all transactions necessarily need to be instant. There will be times where it's important to have a delay, or where it's not important, I suppose, that transaction settles instantly. But if you think about one of the really great things about cash today is that if I turn up if I buy something off Trade Me and turn up at the seller's place and buy a car or a cricket bat or whatever it is, I can pay them instantly, and people know that money is now theirs once it's been paid and the exchange has been completed. in a world where settlement, as we call it, or where the actual money moves later, there is a bit of risk that someone has to carry in that transaction, which can be a problem, particularly for high value things. Instant payments also potentially supports small businesses who are very reliant on cash flow and need money from one transaction to pay for another, to pay a bill that they have outstanding. And so there are some good opportunities from instant payments, but we certainly don't think that every payment needs to be instant.
Great. So if cash is getting harder to get, why are you not concentrating on solving that problem and focusing more on digital cash?
So it's a really important point, and we thank you for the question. We have a significant focus on the cash system. So one of the other work programs that is within my team's remit is a program called Cash System Redesign, and you can find a lot of material about this on our website. I would say that the bulk of the effort in our team is really focused on trying to ensure that cash remains an option for New Zealanders, because we believe very strongly that cash is a critical enabler for people, for communities, for businesses, for transactions, and we get that feedback very strongly through a lot of the public engagement and research we do. We know that people are using cash less and less, but there's a really strong message we get from people that that despite it being used less and less, it remains a really important part of New Zealand's economy and culture and society. So please have a look at our website. And you can have a look at the things that we're doing there. I'd highlight we have announced we'll be doing some community cash trials launching later this year, which is to explore different ways of making cash available in communities that don't have banks in them. So please take a look out for that and have a look at our website.
Will the supply of digital cash be limited, or will the RBNZ be able to create it the same manner as they do LSAPs? And also, if you could just kind of give an idea about what LSAPs are as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, so the LSAPs were a program that was used to help reduce long-term interest rates and used during those COVID years to bring interest rates down over the long term. Digital cash would be created like the money that it would just be another form of money. So it wouldn't be new money in its own right. It would just be a new form, and so it would be created in the same way that we create currency at the moment. LSAPs were used in a particular context, but it's not the way that money is generally created by the Reserve Bank and so it wouldn't be created by LSAPs. We would expect it would just be created in the way we normally create money.
Great. So would people be able to get a loan directly from the central bank, so the Reserve Bank, and would that loan be charged at the official cash rate, the OCR rate?
No, you will not get your loan from the Reserve Bank. You will still use your commercial bank to access loans. The Reserve Bank will hold and issue the central bank digital currency, but the service provider, the next layer, will be the layer that provides the services that will provide you with a wallet, onboarding of clients. Banks will still be providing loans. So that functionality will still be the same. And it is a great question. Thank you for that one.
Right, we've got a few questions here, just a little bit concerned. So could you clarify for us, is the RBNZ becoming into a commercial bank? And if not, how is our role different from commercial banks when handling this digital cash?
Yes, another good question. No, we're definitely not becoming a commercial bank. We are not competing with commercial banks. We are the central bank of the country, and we will, in the role that we have at the moment to issue cash, we will just continue this role. The physical asset will just look something different. It will just be a digital asset instead of a paper $100 note that you know at the moment. Or do you have $100 notes? Yes, we do. So that is the difference. We will still remain the central bank of the country, not competing with commercial banks at all. Thank you.
Just to add on that one, I think that's exactly right. It's important to understand one of the design features, I suppose, that we've decided on is this will be what we call a two-tier model, which means that the Reserve Bank will issue the money like we currently do today with cash, but intermediaries, third-party service providers, wallet providers, banks, will provide the services to the end user. And so that whole customer service piece, onboarding, providing answering questions when people have lost their password and other things will be done by others, not by us. We are proposing to continue in our role as sort of the back end, the wholesale central bank in the process.
So cash is being used less and less. What kind of evidence do you have that supports that statement?
We run annual cash surveys, which give us a really clear set of data on how people are using cash. We also issue cash. We are the ones that the commercial banks, order banknotes and coins from and make it available to them, and then the public purchase it from their banks via ATMs. So we have a pretty good sense of the volume of orders that are being made of us, and we've known for a long time that the amount of cash people are using in a transactional sense is declining. What we also know, though, is that the amount of cash people are holding, so not necessarily paying with, is going up. So we have this paradox, they say, where people are using cash less and less for transactional purpose, for buying and selling, but are holding it at home as a sort of store of value, as we say. And maybe that explains a core function of central bank money, of the money we issue, which is to provide that sort of certainty for people. But yeah, there's certainly a very clear data which demonstrates that people are using cash less and less.
Great. So look, cash is the value anchor for the New Zealand dollar. Will digital cash become a similar value anchor?
Yes, it will become a similar anchor because it is digital cash. It is the Reserve Bank issued New Zealand dollar. It's just a digital format. So yes.
Right. And we've got a few questions here about accessibility. So could you advise us how digital cash could be easily accessible to people who don't have electronic devices?
Yeah, really great question, and something we would really appreciate some feedback on through this consultation. It's really important. Accessibility is really, really important for us, but how we achieve that through the design of a digital cash is something we appreciate your perspective on. We've had some really good feedback on that through the work we've done to date, through engagement with the Disabled Persons Assembly and others. But really, how that works in practice, we're keen to get some feedback on. So please provide that through the consultation.
Great. And will the Reserve Bank hold the right to freeze digital cash accounts?
It's a good question. It's not, as I said, through a two-tier model. We won't have any access to who's to front-end data, to the data about who's actually holding the money. So that will all be held by the third-party intermediary. And so we won't be able to identify an individual to freeze the account for. That would all need to be handled in the way it is today by your bank or the third-party service provider that deals with you as a customer.
So could you, in theory, prevent certain types of transactions? Thinking about kind of anti-money laundering, that kind of stuff.
So the system would need to be compliant with AML, KYC legislation. But as I've said before, this is a two-tier model. So the Reserve Bank would not be acting in that way to ensure compliance or to support police with criminal investigations. But we would expect that, as is the case today, with the existing money in your bank account, that with a warrant or in circumstances justified by the law, that people may, that the police or others might be able to access accounts or data to complete criminal investigations or prosecutions and the likes of things. We don't see that fundamentally changing from the system we have today. And in fact, we'd like to find models using technology and legal means to protect privacy more than people currently have through their bank account. But that is something that we want feedback on through the consultation, and we'll be exploring further through future work around how the technology really can enable a heightened level of privacy while still ensuring that legal compliance can be achieved.
Right, look, what will the total supply be of digital cash, and will it have a programmable inflation rate, kind of like Bitcoin?
So there's we have no current target for the amount of digital cash that would be in circulation. Currently, the thinking is that it would be demand driven. So as Margaret was saying earlier, we see it as another version of the product we currently issue. And so we don't put a cap on the amount of cash that we circulate. Granted, there may be different demand profile for digital cash, so we may need to sort of think about that in future, but we don't have a cap in mind. And on the programmable inflation rate, no, we wouldn't intend to do that. The fundamentals of the money would be the same as with the cash we issue today, in the sense that it is just an asset that exists that people can buy and sell with, and the supply is managed through general tools that we use to manage monetary policy and the like.
So look, a couple of questions here. Has your team consulted with the banking sector, and how will their role change?
Yes, we've had a lot of engagement with the banking sector. So I should note this is our second consultation. We had our first one back in 2021, and a lot of the feedback we received through that is available on our website. And the banks have been a key part of the group we've been talking to, along with the public and other stakeholders. There's lots of different views within banks, I think, on this, and we'll be really keen to hear their feedback through this consultation. That'll be a group that we're targeting. We think there's really a role for banks in digital cash and providing some services, but a role for others as well. And that's one of the things we're keen to achieve is a platform that banks and other service providers can use and innovate on and provide services to customers in ways they don't currently have today.
Great. So just looking further kind of abroad, so what's happening globally with CBDCs, so central bank digital currencies? Is this something that other central banks are asking of us?
Yes, that is really a great question. Central banks are looking at central bank digital currency, and I think there's a digital CBDC tracker on the website that you can just go and follow, that more than 90% of all central banks in the world are already looking at CBDC. Either they are investigating and researching, or they are in the process of putting a pilot together or running a pilot. And there's also 4 countries that have already issued CBDC. So it is varied. The first country that went live with CBDC was the Bahamas. The Bank of England and the ECB is really far in their process looking at CBDC, and they will probably issue in the next couple of years. So just again, we have not decided to issue. We are still consulting with you and the banks and all the stakeholders. But yes, it is definitely something that as a global community, we are looking into CBDC. Thank you.
Would a digital cash account incur interest such as a retail transaction account does now?
We're still working through the decisions around interest. That's a really good question. Something that we're thinking about whether it should be more like the digital money that we have in our exchange settlement account, which pays interest overnight, or whether it should be more like cash, which is obviously you don't accrue interest on. And that part of that is the thinking around what it means for monetary policy, which is really important to the bank, but also how attractive it is relative to other types of money that exist. So that's a good question, and something we'll be interested in feedback on, and something we're doing further work on.
So we've got lots of questions coming in. How concerned is the Reserve Bank about the uptake of cryptocurrencies? Is central bank digital currency a reaction to this concern?
So it's partially a reaction to some of the things that have happened in the wider sort of cryptocurrency space. I suppose it's important to understand there are two, when we think about crypto, on the one hand, you have things like Bitcoin, which people seem to be holding as more of an investment, an asset that they sit on, and the value goes up, and that's great. We're less concerned about that. We're more concerned about the potential for new forms of money to emerge that people might use that aren't the New Zealand dollar, and that would impact, quite fundamentally the economy and the way we operate monetary policy and the likes of those sorts of things. We also think there's an opportunity, though, for a central bank digital currency to work alongside stable coins to sort of provide a backing of trust, potentially, where the digital cash or the CBDC would provide that sort of core stabilizing mechanism in the background and allow the stable coin at the front end to do some of the innovation, and provide the innovative use cases. I think it's important also to understand that central banks started getting most interested in central bank digital currencies recently when Facebook started getting interested in potentially issuing its own stable coin. And there were concerns about, with a network that big, what that would mean for the fiat currencies that we issue and the tools that we have and the well-being of the people in our economies. And so, there is definitely sort of a concern about the potential for new forms of money and the risks they pose, but also we think an opportunity for digital cash to exist alongside other forms of money in the future that provide choice to others.
Will banks be able to use CBDCs as a balance sheet asset?
So it's a good question. It's something that we still need to work through, but in the sense that they can still use exchange settlement accounts. They use cash. They own cash. We would expect that digital cash would exist and be used by banks in the same way that those other products of ours are already used. But exactly how it's treated by banks, we need to work through. One thing we can say, though, is that for an end user, so if I hold digital cash and I have a bank that provides my digital cash wallet, that digital cash, which is mine, will never sit on the bank's balance sheet, but they'd only hold digital cash if it would actually sort of belong to them, and they were the ultimate owner of it. So in the same way, as we have with cash today, the cash is mine, it's my property. So digital cash would be the same. It would be your property, and the bank or the service provider would really just facilitate your ability to use that and buy and sell things. It would never be something that they hold on your behalf.
Would RBNZ provide third-party providers of digital cash wallets guidelines as to what transactions to block or suppress? And just further to that, is this the kind of feedback and thoughts that you're wanting to get out of the submissions on the consultation we've got open?
So that is, it's a good question. It is exactly the sort of feedback we're keen to get. We have no intention of blocking any transactions. As we said in the video up front, we have no intention of controlling what things can and can't be spent on, just in the way we don't currently do that through the existing two-tier monetary system, and that we don't do it with cash. Of course, the law does make certain types of transactions illegal, and we would expect that to continue to be the case, but we would not see that as something that the Reserve Bank would be responsible for implementing in the way that it's not responsible for that today.
How will the RBNZ be able to know who the proper owner of the CBDC is at any one time?
So I think the answer on that one is we won't.
Yeah.
We won't have any information on the end user and what they're doing with their money. That's not our business in the current model of money, and it's not intended to be our business in the future money model with digital cash. We won't hold that data, and we won't know who's using it or for what purpose. There may be banks or others that do, which is, as is the case in the current system, but we don't, and we don't need that data, that information to deliver our objectives or purpose.
Right, so we've got another few questions here about the overseas kind of climate. So are we studying what other countries are putting out? And are we in communications with them? Any kind of learnings that we've taken from other central bank digital currencies?
Yes, we are in constant communication with other central banks, and they publish papers regularly, which we read, we study, and we communicate with them, and we learn from them just as they are learning from us. So there's a lot of things that we are currently looking into. The remuneration issue, how it would impact on monetary policy. So those are questions that's really important to us to understand what the impact would be, how the future can unfold. But it's also important to know that nobody really knows at the moment, because this is something new. We are learning as we're going along. And as a central bank community, we need to learn from one another. So that is very important for us. And that is why we keep in communication, learning, attending seminars, doing calls, all those kinds of things to learn more and to learn from each other's experiences.
Right. So will digital currency be linked to digital ID in the future?
So it's something we'd be interested in feedback on. We think digital identity is a key part of the future ecosystem, in the sense that future ecosystem generally in New Zealand, its connection to digital cash, we're keen for feedback on. We can see, some benefits of digital identity in making things more simple that are potentially complex today, to improving access to bank accounts, for example, through making know your customer requirements easier, all that sort of stuff. But we know some people have reservations about that. So please provide us feedback, and we'll be interested in looking at that.
One of Bitcoin's key innovations was to solve the double spend problem. How will the RBNZ ensure that digital cash cannot be double spent?
So this really comes down to the design, how we design the central bank digital currency. And so something we will need to work through the technology. There are different ways to do it depending on, I suppose, the type of digital cash you issue. I don't want to get into sort of discussion of tokens versus accounts. But the basic point is, depending on the technology, you sort of do it in different ways. One thing we have said, though, where the double spending issue is really important and something that we'll need to do some further work on, is we said that offline payments is something that we think would be important for digital cash. We can see real value for that in a crisis or a natural disaster, or for people that live in areas with little internet or dodgy power. And when money's taken offline, double spending issues become harder to solve. And so there's a big technological component there that will need to be a focus for us as we progress this work. In other countries, they're exploring this heavily. And so there's a lot of good work being done by the international payments community on that issue.
Great. Look, will people outside of New Zealand, including companies, be able to hold digital cash?
Again, it's a great question, and one we'd be interested in some feedback on, one we haven't reached a conclusion on. There's probably different schools of thought on that. On the one hand, you have the money that the New Zealand dollar today is fully convertible, and lots of people overseas hold it. Whether digital cash as a sort of certain product should be able to be held offshore is a question we'll need to explore. One thing we are really keen to support through potential digital cash would be helping reduce the frictions and the costs, and I suppose simplifying cross-border payments, where cross-border payments can be very, very costly. They can take a long time, and digital cash, using a new technology with a different set of partners, can potentially bring down those costs and speed up the transactions. So that in that sense, there may need to be some offshore holding of digital cash to enable that. But that's all work we need to do and think through, and really interested in how important that is for people.
How might you guys manage the anti-money laundering obligations?
That is a good question. The anti-money laundering obligations will be managed as they are being managed today. It's not going to be different, and I'm not an expert on all the laws on anti-money laundering, but we are in consultation with the relevant regulators. They are giving us input, and we will bring that into the design as well. So, but it will take place. The laws as it is applied today will still apply. The laws will not change. Thank you.
So can I just clarify, is there a saving limit on digital cash? And if there is, would that not be a significant turn-off for those considering adopting it?
That is a great question, and this is exactly the type of information that we would like to hear from you. Would you like to see a limit? How could we implement it? Should we implement it? So at the moment, that is open for discussion, and we would like to hear your views. Thanks.
What about the smaller banks? Will smaller banks be able to get into digital wallets and digital currency? Or is that really up to the big banks?
We would love for smaller banks and even non-banks, entities that are operating in the financial services space that would like to get into wallets or offer services or build new functionality, innovative functionality. We would love a digital cash ecosystem to support their involvement, their ability to provide services. That's one of the key. That's how we think a central bank digital currency or digital cash can support innovation and really support new products and services for New Zealanders, is by bringing more players into the payments environment than the current system allows.
Great. So we're nearly out of time, but we've got time for just one or two more questions. Look, will you guys be using a blockchain?
It's a really good question and one we get asked a lot. We don't know is the short answer. And again, interested in feedback on this question. We know it's really important to some people. There's lots of different design choices around the technology, but also around the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. We've been trying to be quite intentional and focus on what are the outcomes we think are important for digital cash, what's important for New Zealanders if we were to have one of these. And we think the technology choices should then flow from being really, really clear on the outcomes. And blockchain certainly is one of the options that people talk about.
So will people be forced to adopt digital currency?
Definitively no.
Right. And what about government payments? So like, for example, ACC, could that be paid in digital cash?
All good questions and things we'd like some feedback on through the consultation. We think like any payment, we would love if we do have digital cash, it'd be great if there was an option or a choice for people to be paid in that. But we'd be interested in feedback from people and what works for them, acknowledging that they have lots of choices in the sorts of money they're paid and the way they're paid, and that a digital cash would be another option that they could exercise.
Great. Look, final question. What are you both most excited for on this proposition of digital cash? What's the thing that you think is like kind of the coolest part of it?
From my perspective, I think it is just the options and modernizing what we're doing, giving people more options to do and go about their normal business. It makes it easier for businesses, for the man on the street, just to go about, buy something, make a payment, transfer money, and that is really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I think money is fundamental. It's the key thing that greases the wheels of the economy, that makes the economy go round. In New Zealand, we used to think of ourselves as the All Blacks of payments, with FPOS back in the 1980s being sort of really world leading. And since then, we've fallen behind. And if you go overseas, you'll see the products and services that are available in many other countries, not just developed countries, but other countries, far exceed in many cases the options we have available in New Zealand. Digital cash is an opportunity to really provide better products and services to New Zealanders and bring us back to the forefront and support productivity and efficiency and inclusion and innovation and all those good things that we want New Zealand. So I'm most excited about the sort of big opportunity for New Zealand within that to meet our payments needs, but also support New Zealanders that need different use cases and have different needs.
Thank you, guys. Look, that's about all the time we've got for questions. Now, if the people in the audience are listening, we'd appreciate if you could just drop in the chat how you found this webinar. So if the timing was good for you, if it was too long, too short, any feedback would be really appreciated. But I will pass back over to our presenters.
Yes, thanks a lot. And thank you very much for all the questions. It was really, really great to have all those questions. Hopefully we answered as many as we could, but please, we'll come back with some answers on some of them via our website if we can. Just to close, I wanted to finish with a karakia. Unuhia, unuhia. Unuhia ki te uru tapu nui, ki a wātia, ki a mama, te ngākau, te tinana, te wairua, I te ara takatu, hoia ra rongo, whakairia ake ki runga, tuturu whakamaua ki a tina, tina, hui e tai ki e. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you.